Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Walking in His Presence. I'm Pastor Dave Lasik, and this is the media outreach of our church here in Bethel Park called In His Presence Ministry. In His Presence Ministry is located here on Library Road in the Hillcrest Shopping Center, and we have services at 10:30 on Sunday morning. So if you are looking for a church or new to the area, we would welcome you, and we would enjoy to have you join us at 10:30 on Sunday mornings in His Presence, Hillcrest Shopping Center in Bethel Park. Today we're going to coming out of, by the time that you actually see this, we'll actually have gone past the 4th of July, and I hope you had a happy and a safe 4th of July weekend. And by the time you see this part, we will have already gone past the holiday. But what we're going to be talking about is actually a short message called The Faith of Our Fathers. We take a look at our nation and we honor those who have served. We honor its foundation and its foundational principles. And we honor the men and women that really sacrificed life and liberty to set the mores and the foundation of this nation. But when we take a look at those particular individuals, when we take a look at what it really takes or who these people really were, we begin to see not just an amazing individual, a tremendous soldier and commander and leader. We begin to see the fingerprints of God on someone's life. We begin to see what really motivated some of the things that went into the founding of this great nation. Many have come and many have served. Some gave all for us to continue the freedom to have even a show like this, a show where we can talk about the foundation of our country, that we can talk about the faith, the religious freedoms that we hopefully don't take for granted. And that's what we want to take a look at today. My heart is to kind of give you just a little bit of a glimpse at some of the founding fathers and where they came from in those times of trial, in those times of the utmost of challenges in their life. If you turned in a few weeks ago, I had introduced really the nation's first flag. And it was, to most people's surprise, not red, white, and blue. It was actually green and white. It was a flag that was fashioned and commissioned by George Washington long before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. General Washington knew what he was up against. And he actually knew the odds that he was standing against. Some accounts say that he acknowledged the fact that for them to go against the British was downright laughable. With the ragtag group of soldiers he was able to get together, it was a challenge beyond anyone who would want to step up and step into it. So what made this man go forward? What was it that was in his foundation personally? What was it that caused him to step out and say, no, this is right and we're going for it? He fashioned a flag, and if you haven't seen it, I would challenge you to look it up online. It's called an Appeal to Heaven flag. The flag itself was white. It had the words across the top, an appeal to heaven, and on it had the picture of what we would call a Christmas tree or an evergreen tree. And every one of those things were very important because the white showed the purity of the mission. It showed the purity of General Washington's desires. He wasn't just out to defeat the mother nation. He wasn't out to prove and make a name for himself. He was out to truly obtain and get a land where religious freedom could be religious and political freedoms could be actually realized. He put across the top of that an appeal to heaven. And that probably gives us the largest of the insights of really the man, George Washington. He realized what he was up against. He realized that one man against the British was incomprehensible. And what he said and what he did was he declared the only way that this is going to come to pass, the only way that this mission that he believed was from God was going to come to pass, was if they approached the God of heaven and asked for his hand and his help. And so an appeal to heaven was a declaration of the faith of George Washington. You don't see it in a lot of the pictures of the soldiers of the Revolution. In fact, even at Valley Forge, when you see that picture of him kneeling and praying at that fort, this flag was flown. Cropped out of the picture, perhaps, in today's world. But truly, it was flown. How do I know that? Because not only did he fly it at every Army installation in every fort, in order to take on the British, George Washington himself, and it's rumored that he paid for this out of his own funds, fashioned 6 schooners, and they went and they met the British fleet. Now, what could a little schooner do against a British liner? By itself, nothing. But with an appeal to heaven and God on its side, it not only intercepted that British liner, it came to find out that that British liner that it intercepted carried guns, ammunition, and supplies. So much on that one liner, it actually supplied and funded the entire first year of the Revolution. Folks, those things don't just happen. I believe that was God telling George Washington directly, and us generations removed, showing us his fingerprints on this nation. I believe that there was in that God's providential hand to tell us exactly what he thought of the United States of America. But it took a man. It's always taken a man. It's always taken a man of faith to step out and do what God has called him to do. And in fact, one of the messages I'll be preaching here shortly are the 7 covenants that go through the Bible from Genesis forward, and how initially each of those covenants to the person they were declared were insurmountable. He told Adam shortly after he had created Eve, okay, now populate the earth. And Adam, to Adam, that was an insurmountable task. It was an absolutely insurmountable task. He consistently gave in his covenants, God I'm talking about, gave in his covenants what appeared to be incredibly insurmountable, unrealistic challenges to the men of those covenants. Whether it was the covenant to Adam, the Adamic covenant, whether it was the Noahic covenant to Noah, the Mosaic covenant, the Davidic covenant, each of these covenants carried with them a seemingly insurmountable task that God placed on those covenant partners. And the faith of our fathers, that when you take a look at that, they had truly been given a task that in the natural, in the human mind, would seem insurmountable. It would seem absolutely crazy to think that they could take on the entire British fleet and win. When we began this journey, I started down this with my church last week, and when I began, I thought I was just going to be talking about the founding fathers of the country. But God began to show me that that's always been how He has worked with people. And today, what I just want to read is out of Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11 goes through the ages and shows us God's hand on people's lives, God's hand and how they responded. And I'll just read a few of the verses. This is Hebrews chapter 11. It's called by most in the Christian world as the Hall of Fame of Faith, where one by one it just goes through, and the writer of Hebrews explains how every single one of these people reacted and were provided a challenge by God that they needed to step up to, that they needed to step into. So I'm going to begin reading in verse 1 of chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11 says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, for by it the elders obtained a good testimony. By faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. By faith Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and through it he being dead still speaks. By faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found because God had taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony, that he pleased God." Oh, that each one of us would have that testimony. How about you? Is that not your heart's desire? That though you be known for many things, many talents and abilities, that the one thing that I know I want to be known for, I know the one thing that my heart's desire is that people would say that he, Dave Lasik, pleased God. Verse 6, "But without faith it's impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him." The interesting thing about the Valley Forge portrait, as you remember, that George Washington was kneeling there praying. He was seeking God. It says he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Did George Washington know what was going to be coming of those 6 schooners that he reportedly financed? Probably not. He had a hope, he had a desire, but he was rewarded because he was somebody who diligently sought the mind of God. He's someone who diligently pursued God's heart in a situation. And he realized who he was in that situation. And that's really the key for all of us. Are you facing some difficult times right now? Are you facing some challenges? We all are. But what we need to do is really to step back and say who we are in this challenge, who we are up against this obstacle. Because when we take a look realistically at who we are, then we begin to understand that maybe in your circumstance, like in some of the ones that I've faced, only an appeal to heaven is going to make the difference. In verse 7, it talks about Noah. It says, "By faith, Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is according to faith." I don't know if you happen to know or not, but when God told Noah that there was going to be a flood, there wasn't rain on the earth up till that point, most scholars say. And so he had to completely believe God, that what God was saying And that's why it says there in the verse, warned of things not yet seen. Noah had to step into and believe God for things he didn't see. Are you in that position today? Do you have a challenge before you? An obstacle that seems like a huge mountain before you? Do you have something that you're up against that really you may know, but you may have been dragging your feet, because really only an appeal to heaven will get you up and over that mountain, will bring that mountain down and level it and put you on a level plane? Those kinds of things maybe you haven't seen before in your life, just like Noah, but it didn't stop him. Will it stop you? Will you go to God and say, God, I need your help. I'm making an appeal to heaven. I'm making it from the white flag, from a pure heart. Why am I making an appeal to heaven? The Christmas tree, the evergreen, because he's an everlasting God. He ever lives to love his and love his own. Whatever your challenge is today, even of things not seen, will you go to God? Will you just confess to him, like I do almost regularly? God, I'm up against another one, and I need your help. I need you to step into this situation now too. But after you do that, and it's kind of interesting, the next verse of chapter 11 talks about the person who is known as the father of faith. In other words, he believed God. He believed when God said something, even though his eyes couldn't see it. In verse 8 of chapter 11, it says, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. Ever been like that? Not knowing where he's going. By faith, he dwelt in the land of promise, as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has its foundations, whose builder and maker is God. By faith, Sarah herself also received strength to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. She took a look at God and said, God is faithful. I'm here today to tell you God is faithful, whatever your circumstance, whatever your battle is. Could be physical, could be health, could be financial, could be mental, could be relational. God is faithful. He will step into that situation as you make an appeal to heaven. He will step up and step into that for you. I ask you to go online, take a look at that flag. Take a look at the history and the place, the description of the flag, and how it was found now at this point in time. Does it look like things may be spinning out of control to you in this nation? God is still there. We can still make an appeal to heaven. We can always make an appeal to heaven. God is always listening. Therefore, it says in verse 12, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born as many as the stars of the sky, in the multitude, innumerable as the sand, which is by the seashore. You know, when we read the scriptures, we have to watch not to just blow by it. And so I'm going to, here as we come to the conclusion of our time together, I want to challenge you. Many things were presented this past holiday weekend. Many great words, and there are many great warriors who gave. Some families have given all, and those who have died for our freedom. And I don't want to take that for granted. Nor do I want to take for granted the thing that stands as our banner in this country. and that is our flag. I don't like the people defame it. I don't like the people tear it apart, cut it down, because when you do that, you count the lives that were given for it as naught. And I want you to think about that if you've ever burned a flag or really just despised it. There's people that have died that have given you the right to be able to despise that. I'm going to play a short clip now, because one of the things that we do in this country is that we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, I was able, somebody had put it online for me, a short clip. It's only 4 or 5 minutes, and it's a beloved actor, well known through the ages. His name is Red Skelton, and he tells of an instance when he was a boy, learning the Pledge of Allegiance in his classroom. And I'm going to play for you right now this short clip, and we're going to give you the opportunity to hear the Pledge of Allegiance recited, not just by memory, but being recited from the heart of a great American and a great fearer of God, the man Red Skelton. He has gone on, but he leaves this legacy for us. And I hope that this rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance will impact you different than the Pledge of Allegiance ever has before. So we're going to play that for you right now. You can find this for yourself out on YouTube. You can just key in Red Skelton, Pledge of Allegiance, and he did this in 1969.
I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. And I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher. Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell. And he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester. And it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all. For all. Which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
Hello and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you take down again. You can find that at Red Skeleton, Pledge of Allegiance, 1969. I was only 10 when he did that, and I'm watching it today. Well, that about does it for our show today. I hope you had a great 4th, and I hope that the faith of our fathers means something a little different to you today. God bless you. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week here on Walking in His Presence. I'm Pastor Dave. Have a great week. In His Presence Church is located at 4992 Library Road in the heart of the Hillcrest Shopping Center. We're a non-denominational Christian church who hold the Word of God as our standard and Christian, Christ-like principles as our motto. We believe the Bible to be God's love letter of truth and understanding. Our desire is not only to learn what it says for knowledge's sake, but to live out what it means in our everyday lives. See, Jesus' whole goal was to please the Father, and by colonization, not domination, expand and establish a kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Do you have a church home? Great. Serve it with your time, talent, and treasure. Serve it with all your heart. If you're without a church family, consider becoming part of ours. Our services are at 10 a.m. Sunday. We hope to see you there. You see, everyone's welcome in His presence. For service times, feel free to call 412-852-2888. Transformation Christian Counseling is located at 4992 Library Road, Bethel Park, the Hillcrest Shopping Center. It's a Christian, Bible-based counseling center right here in the heart of Bethel Park. We believe that the Bible holds God's answer to life's sea of questions. As you follow directions of the manufacturer's handbook, your challenges and issues begin to become bearable and solutions actually arise. We believe really it's the Holy Spirit that is the ultimate counselor. So while not minimizing or trivializing any problem, we ask for Him to show us the answer, to help you see God's truth in the midst of a problem. That's our goal. John 8:32 says, "You'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free." You see, your God-given destiny awaits you. And for an appointment, call 412-852-2888.